Live from RT headquarters, breaking news today. A plane crash in the French Alps is expected to have killed 150 people. You're in the know. A Germanwings plane carrying 150 people on board has crashed in the French Alps. Survivors are unlikely, according to the French Prime Minister. These are the pictures from the apparent crash site in the mountains. You can see small pieces of debris. A black box was reportedly also found. Well, the Airbus A320 departed from Barcelona and was heading to Germany's Düsseldorf. It had disappeared from radar 46 minutes into the flight and sharply descended for 8 minutes before crashing. The passengers were mainly Germans and Spanish. A group of up to 16 German school children were believed to be on board that plane. And these are the latest pictures from Düsseldorf. Relatives and friends gathering at the airport where the plane was eventually supposed to land. We are closely following this story. Check in with our main news desk for more extensive coverage at the top of next hour. The U.S. House of Representatives discussed Ukraine and decided
to provide lethal weaponry.
Why?
There is no shortage of the will to fight.
Yes, Ukrainians are willing to kill each other. Let's help them because
we shouldn't let other countries tell us what to do.
There you have it. The resolution is non-binding, but it sends a signal to President Obama. Yet another signal. The first one came in December last year. Congress passed a bill authorizing $350 million of military aid to Ukraine. It covered weapons, including anti-tank missiles, as well as radar and unmanned surveillance drones. Obama signed the bill, but hasn't acted on it yet, although the White House promised to supply Kiev with Humvees and small drones. Joining me in the now is F. William Engdahl here in our Moscow studios. He's strategic analyst and author of Full Spectrum Dominance. William, thanks for coming out to our headquarters. I want to start by asking you, how does this vote go along with Ukraine's ceasefire, the Minsk agreement under which Ukrainian army and anti-Kiev fighters are meant to pull back, to step away from weapons, let's say it that way?
Yeah. Well, if you recall, Washington was not invited to the talks that led to the Minsk ceasefire agreement. And since Washington is behind the coup d'etat of February 22nd last year in Kiev that put this regime of criminals and oligarchs and neo-Nazis into power, precisely for the purpose, it's clear if you look at the sequence of events, the purpose of provoking Russia into a military response. Now, what we've seen transpire since March of last year is the utter, number one, I think, lack of fighting will on the part of Ukrainians killing fellow Ukrainians. Number two, the catastrophic unpreparedness of the Ukrainian military itself, and the commitment of the, well, I call them partisans, but for want of a better word, the people in East Ukraine who are trying to defend their families and their homes and their right to use their own language. So,
William, I can understand why Washington would be for, or at least the rhetoric for pushing for these weapons, but why Ukraine? Ukraine has to see the fallout from this conflict. They have to see what's happening in their own country, no?
Well,
why?
I think now they do, but the question of why Ukraine, Brzezinski stated this quite clearly in his book in 1997, The Grand Chess Game. Ukraine is the key to a Russia great power status, and if you deprive Russia of Ukraine, you keep it isolated and contained. That's at least the wish in terms of American geopolitics. And by cutting off Ukraine, you cut off the energy pipelines to Western Europe, and ultimately a major goal of this is to break the growing symbiosis between especially Germany, the German economy, and the Russian economy. And Ukraine, they see, is an ideal way to do that. They care not a whit about the Ukrainian people. That's clear in the lack of any kind of financial support for rebuilding Ukraine's economy. in the demands that the IMF dictate to Ukraine, another version of shock therapy and asset looting by Western companies.
Obama hasn't acted on this first resolution, basically, from the Congress that promised aid to Ukraine. Why are we seeing, and thank God, more rhetoric than actual action? Is there some understanding of a line that shouldn't be crossed?
Well, I think there's a deep split within the Washington power establishment. I think some people in the Pentagon understand very well that Russia is not Syria or Libya. And if you start messing too aggressively with Russia, even Brzezinski and Kissinger have come out warning Obama, back off. Do not try to humiliate Russia. This is not wise geopolitics for Washington. America is right now in an economic depression. The official statistics are lies, they're manipulation. Unemployment has been estimated at 23% of the workforce. The debt levels are in the stratosphere for the federal government, the state and local government, and for the private households. So in that kind of a situation, the country is in no shape to be provoking a war, to be sticking a stick into a hornet's nest called Ukraine in hopes that Russia will jump in and try to clean up the mess. And they're not, so far, not acting foolishly like some people in the neocon establishment had hoped in Washington.
What about the Europeans? Why are they unable to convince Washington to back off in the sense of the interest of keeping war off of the continent? I mean, it's their continent, it's their borders, they're here, they'll have to pay with for any kind of answer to a provocation. Well,
the American military-industrial establishment and the establishment overall cares not a whit about Europe. And, you know, that's tough luck for Europe as they see it. They want war. This is important to understand. The power base that I call them the American oligarchs, the Rockefellers, the Warren Buffetts, the George Soroses, the Bill Gates, and so forth, but the old families, they're losing it everywhere in the world. Russia and China and the BRICS are coming closer together, building alternatives to the IMF World Bank, energy deals that are linking the Eurasian continent closer and closer economically. And Europe sees this and they want to become a part of that. So with Ukraine, you draw a sharp knife cut right through that growing cooperation between Germany especially, but Europe in general, France and Germany.
What happens when those who want war don't get war? What's the next step?
Very interesting question. I think some of the recent statements by American military generals about killing Russians and really inane, stupid statements that have been made have created a cold splash of water in Berlin, especially, and other capitals in Europe, but especially Berlin, that this American game is becoming very dangerous. And I think there's a very distinct likelihood that Washington could be isolated. It's the future of Europe at stake, and if they continue to play this game with Washington, no matter what the blackmail, and there is blackmail on Merkel, on all the key political figures, it's another world war that the Europeans do not want to fight against Russia in this century. So I think if the neocons fail, and they are failing, they're failing in Syria, they're failing in Iraq, they're failing everywhere you turn, because the world is sick of war, I think is the simple answer. And their old gimmicks are not having the magic that they used to, maybe even 10 years, 5 years ago. So it's
quite a gimmick we saw just recently. In fact, yesterday, this march of NATO military hardware through Europe. There was, of course, exercises in the Baltics, and they're planning to drive basically through Europe back to their base in Germany. Is this part of these old school gimmicks?
I think it's ridiculous. It's just the state of NATO internally on a national level in Western Europe is catastrophic. The weapons technology that NATO uses, including the Pentagon, cannot stand a comparison with the most sophisticated fighter jets and other technology of the Russian armed forces. And it's kind of a Potemkin village mirage that NATO is trying to project. Of course, they can do a lot of destruction, but they're really in much worse shape than most of the world believes. And I think their power and the power of these American oligarchs, or these Anglo-American oligarchs, because the British are full into it, derives from the fact that we believe they're powerful. And I don't believe they're powerful. I think they're trembling in fear. And that's, for the human race, I think that's a very good thing.
Well, that would explain some of their bizarre choices. I just finally want to ask you about where we go from here and what Russia can do to improve the situation, because some of their exercises within their borders are quite massive, and they're seen as provocation as well. So what can they do to make sure war doesn't break out on the continent?
I recently wrote a piece called Russia's Remarkable Renaissance. And I've been to Russia many, many times since 1994, my first visit. And what I see in the last months, since this Kiev coup d'etat by Washington, is a new kind of sense, I don't know if pride is the right word, but a sense that we're actually not bad. We're doing something good in the world, and we can change a lot of things. And that, I think, is very, very crucial. Russia has to defend itself. When a bully comes up with a knife and wants to kill you, you have to defend your own autonomy. There's no alternative. And President Putin has made that clear since the 2007 München security speech about the anti-ballistic missile antics of Rumsfeld and the Pentagon back then, and still today. And the encirclement of Russia by NATO after the end of the Cold War, against promises that were given then. So Russia has been very clear. Russia has not been the aggressor in this. Crimea was national security. Had NATO grabbed Crimea through the coup d'etat in Kiev, you can be sure that there would be nuclear submarines based in Sevastopol and right on Russia's doorstep.
F. William Engdahl, strategic analyst and author of Full Spectrum Dominance, with us in the Now. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Will owning a gun make your life safer? Activists in New York have forced gun shop customers to think twice before making the actual purchase. Here's Marina Portnaya with more.
Hey, how you doing?
First-time buyers enter what appears to be a new gun store in New York City.
Are you looking for something for what, target practice or?
Protection.
More for just protection.
Just safety.
And for each firearm model picked up,
when it says shooter, 5-year-old kid, dead one, what does that mean?
a history lesson.
It's also a gun that a 5-year-old found in his parents' bedroom, went down and shot his 9-month-old baby brother with it.
This shop didn't actually sell firearms. It served as the stage of a social media experiment, educating would-be gun owners about the tragic deaths associated with each make and model.
Real children who shot other children, real murder-suicides that occurred. It drove home to people how lethal guns are and got them to think, which was the whole point of the experiment.
Leah Barrett is the executive director of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. She says the fake store stayed open for 2 days.
Collectors love this one. Adam Lanza's mom had this in her collection too, till he took this and several other guns and killed her, then went down to Sandy Hook, killed 6 teachers and 20 innocent children.
Hidden cameras filmed material for what turned out to be a public service announcement.
To get people to think before they bring a lethal weapon designed to kill human beings into their home. And that's all we wanted people to do, is to think twice about that.
Statistics show that 6 out of 10 Americans think owning a firearm makes a home safer. In terms of gun control, a social experiment involving a fake gun shop appears to be generating more support than the president's own initiatives. According to reports, firearm sales have skyrocketed during the Obama era. Every attempt at federal gun control legislation, every shooting massacre has reportedly served to fuel firearms and ammunition sales for a powerful industry.
They're worried about their market share. And so how do they whip it up? By stirring up fear, getting everyone to think that, oh, you need a gun to protect yourself. The bad guy is just around the corner.
But after being informed about the innocent lives lost,
it made me think twice, and I would not buy one.
It made me actually think I'm not going to buy that gun.
Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.
Coming up, while the U.S. talked with Iran, Israel snooped and slipped the secrets to Congress. Stay in the know.
We are not talking the language of war, but I will only react to situations.
I have read the reports, but I'm not in a position to...
But no, I will leave that to the State Department to comment on your latter point.
I don't want to say that.
Mr. Kerry, do you have any comments on the document? No comment? Thank you.
No more weasel words. When you evade a direct question, be prepared for a chase. When you throw a punch, be ready for a battle.
Freedom of speech means little without the freedom to question.
Do we speak your language? Want news, programs and documentaries in Arabic? It's all here on RT. Reporting from the world's hotspots, VIP interviews, intriguing stories. Are you here? Then try RT Arabic. To find out more, visit arabic.rt.com.
Israel is under some heat for spying on nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran, not only eavesdropping on sensitive information, but backstabbing Obama and sharing it with members of the U.S. Congress. Afghanistan's new president is in the Oval Office today. Ashraf Ghani will sit down with Obama after laying the ground with the Pentagon and State Department, who seem to think things are just great in the war-torn country.
There is good news in Afghanistan. Life expectancy has risen by 20 years. Healthcare access has increased dramatically. The number of children in school has risen from some 900,000 who were just boys to 8 million now, with 40% of them girls. The overall economy has been growing, and the combined security forces are now larger and more capable.
More capable? John Kerry forgot to mention a few darker facts. The UN claims more than 10,000 civilians were either killed or injured last year alone in the country, which is still plagued by Taliban attacks. That's an increase of more than 20% from 2013 and is the highest casualty toll in 5 years. Also, around 35% of Afghans are unemployed and 36% live below the poverty line, suffering daily from lack of food, water, and housing. Joining us in the now is Saeed Erekat. How optimistic is the U.S. about the great change that has come to the country after over a decade of war?
I think whatever optimism, it is highly exaggerated. So because one looks at Afghanistan, it is really a classic case of a failed effort. After all, this war has gone on now for more than 13 years. Probably the Taliban control a great deal of the countryside, if not Kabul. You know, the future looks completely uncertain. I mean, I know the Secretary of State likes to speak about life expectancy and girls in school and so on. We probably had the same kind of numbers back in the 70s, late 70s in Afghanistan. So all in all, I think this war goes on and on. There's still 10,000 American soldiers there. There are some 3,000 NATO forces. And in fact, the president of Afghanistan, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, is here to basically ask for a longer stay for American forces. So all in all, is just pouring a lot of money into it. They're asking for more money for strategic partnership, for all these things. And in fact, we are looking into the eye of a failed effort.
So this all lies with Afghanistan. It's basically Afghanistan asking for help. What does the U.S. get out of it?
Well, the United States has committed itself to this war, since October 2001, and it has been going on. I don't really think it went in with a vision or a strategy. They thought they could probably wrap it up rather quickly. I remember some analysts at the time saying that Afghanistan was target poor, and that's why they went into Iraq. They thought that this war would be over. Years later, we see that basically the Taliban exercise a great deal of power, more power than the government or government forces. So I think the United States probably at best looks at a situation that keeps devolving into more violence that will go on for a very long time, and ultimately probably the Taliban coming back to power. It is a very bleak situation.
Well, they're certainly paying for it financially. America's funding is expected to maintain a 352,000-strong security force through the end of 2017. According to Obama's administration officials, that could mean around $4 billion this year, nearly the same amount next year. So how much cash is it going to take? You say the Taliban could resurge there.
Well, absolutely. I think the Taliban are already resurging. I mean, the countryside is almost completely controlled by the Taliban. There are parts of Kabul that are controlled by the Taliban, certainly at night after the fall of darkness. I mean, this is really an endless effort. If you look at the cost, as was projected by Harvard University a year or so ago, on the cost of both wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're looking into something like $6 trillion. I mean, no small change. You could fix the entire infrastructure in the United States that is really falling apart, roads, bridges, hospitals, and so on. So it is really in for a long haul. It will cost a lot more money. And basically, the country has not really made so many gains. I mean, I understand that the Secretary of State, John Kerry, God bless him, he tries so hard, and he wants to project a brighter picture. But the fact of the matter, Afghanistan is a very difficult situation, divided along tribal lines. There's maybe some in the near future, there may be a sectarian struggle. So we don't know, because the sectarian bug now has infected the whole region. So it doesn't really look that good.
All right, Saeed Arikat, journalist and former UN spokesperson for Iraq, with us in the Now from Washington. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The U.S. has made a U-turn and now wants to cooperate with a China-led institution set up to challenge World Bank and dollar domination. America warned countries to think twice about joining the $50 billion bank, but now they seem to think twice. Remember how Uncle Sam didn't want his friends to play with China's global financial foray? Well, he's changed his mind. The U.S. is now willing to cooperate with the $50 billion Chinese-backed institution. Hey, if you can't beat them, join them. CNN, the most trusted name in news, loves atheism, which makes me want to know why. Here's Lori Harfinis with all you need to know.
Did you know that CNN is airing a special tonight called Atheists Inside the World of Non-Believers? All of a sudden, CNN is very supportive of atheism. They're airing a commercial by the Freedom from Religion Foundation starring Ronald Reagan's son Ron, who actually says this.
Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
Good for you, Ron. CNN also just ran another pro-atheism story called The Friendly Atheists Next Door, which shows just how normal and nice atheists can be. Now, atheism is fine. A lot of my best friends are atheists. Anyone should be able to believe whatever the hell they want, as long as they're not hurting others or pushing their beliefs on anyone else. But here's the thing. CNN is deciding to rally around atheism right now at a time when there's a rift between Muslims and atheists going on. The guy who shot 3 Muslims dead in North Carolina recently was an atheist. And there's a debate raging on whether atheists are feeding into America's obvious case of Islamophobia. And just while that's going on, that's when CNN decides to go all out embracing atheism? Maybe they're just trying to explore lots of other faiths to open the conversation, but I guess I must have missed their special on growing up Muslim this week. Either way, when the news starts messing around with influencing religious beliefs, God help us all. I'm the resident, and now you're in the know.
That does it for me today. Send us your comments at InTheNowRT. To check us out on Vine and stay in touch online for lots of clips and news you won't see during the show. See you tomorrow. Till then, it's now or never.